I spent most of my career in St. Louis County, but I grew up in a small town, Bonne Terre, Missouri, about 60 miles south of St. Louis. I am, and I'll always be proud to be a North County Raider. So I must admit that I'm frustrated with so much discussion about St. Louis and Kansas City and the focus of underperforming schools in those regions. Yes, there are unique challenges to urban and suburban area, public schools. And yes, those metropolitan areas have significant financial impact on all of Missouri. There is no argument about either of those two things. However, I contend that it is our small towns and rural communities that give Missouri its identity. And quite frankly, that's where most of our local elected officials reside. I'm not sure if he's there with you at the conference, but I'd like to recognize Mr. Jack Poston as one of many teachers who influenced me to become a teacher. I know most of you know Jack, a leader in MRTA for years, a past president. And I'm sure you're not surprised that Jack had a lasting impression on me and other students that he taught. So thank you, Jack, for that. But I could go on. Ms. Jenkins, Coach Matt Howe, Ms. Sharon Thurlkill, Ms. Pat Bockenkamp, Ms. Delane Schlemeyer, Mr. Rich Kern, and so many others that left a deep impression on me and my world. These teachers in that local school helped to raise me. They taught me integrity, commitment, working through difficulty. They taught me kindness. They were present at football games, choir concerts, school plays. I saw them at church, at local restaurants, grocery stores. And in Bonne Terre and Deloge, the sister city to Bonne Terre, the North County R1 school district, along with churches, were the community. The community revolved around those two entities, the school and the churches. So getting into a little discussion here about advocacy, I'll give a football analogy. As a former football coach and player, and for coaches that are out there, you'll understand this, and hopefully those of you who are Kansas City Chiefs will pick up on it too. But I was an offensive lineman, and I wasn't very big. In high school, pretty good size, but when I got to college, I played a year of college football at Southwest Baptist in Bolivar. I had a lot of defensive linemen who were a lot bigger than I was. But early on, I learned from coaches that when you are smaller and you have a bigger opponent across the line from you, you have to use their momentum against them. Use that size advantage to your advantage. So if they want to go to the left, you take them to the left and get them out of the play. They want to go to the right, you do the same thing. Now, if they want to come down the middle, we were probably in a little bit of trouble. But if I could use their momentum against them, then I could gain the advantage. And I think that's what we have to really consider when we talk about advocacy for public education. We have to figure out what are those topics and those ideas that we can use to our advantage to make sure that we begin to win this war of words and ideas in promoting the health and the security of public education. So I'll continue with the football analogy. This past season, North County had a good run in the Class 4 football state playoffs. And I had a chance to go down and see a couple of games. It was a mini homecoming for me, and I really enjoyed that. But I had a chance to talk to some people that I hadn't seen for years who were there watching games. I saw some guys that I played high school football with whose now, sons were playing and daughters were cheerleaders and things like that. So, but I was in the football venue. So I did some talking about public education, but I kept it related to that. I wanted to use where I was. It was a football game. I wanted to use that to my advantage and my talking points. So I actually had one conversation with a guy that I went to high school with, and I said, hey, you've been coming to games, and he told me, yes, his youngest son was playing on the team, and he had another son who'd played before. His daughter was involved in high school. He was an individual who was very involved in high school. And I knew that North County still meant a great deal to him, and being part of that community, coming to football games and going to basketball games and concerts was very important. So I said to him, I said, are you concerned at all that football and extracurricular activities in the state of Missouri could really be at risk? And he stopped and he looked at me and said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, because of so much legislation right now and so much promotion of charter schools and voucher programs, as tax dollars are lost and dollars for public schools are shifted other places, it's very possible that extracurriculars could be hurt eventually in some of our rural communities and our rural schools. And, we started having this conversation. He was very bothered by that, and he wanted to know a little bit more about it, so I gave him some more information. I also told him that his legislators in that area, Mike Henderson, Dale Wright, Elaine Gannon, were all very, significant advocates for public education. But it was a very good conversation. I felt when it was over, I felt as if I had made an impression on him because I talked about something that was valuable to him. So a few weeks after that, I heard Governor Parsons make the comment on a political television show. He said, people in Missouri live where they live because they want to live the way they want to live. Now, that's a little bit wordy, but his point there was people want their communities to stay the way they are in many ways. You've heard a lot of talk, probably, if you've paid attention to state politics, about broadband expansion, taking the internet, and making sure that we have good, strong internet connections throughout the state, whether that be for farmers, whether that be for students. That's something that I think MRTA attaches itself to, because the idea is that if we want individuals to remain in rural communities, or if we want families to immigrate back to rural communities, we have to have good broadband. We have to have good amenities for them. And I contend that we have to have good, strong public schools, because you might have good internet, but you're not going to move back if there's not a good school for your child to attend. So again, using that to our advantage, how do we make that connection with different entities? Maybe that's the Farm Bureau. I know Richard either will or has already talked about that. I think that's an organization that we align ourselves with because our values are very much the same. We want good, strong communities, and they see it as being, advocacy for farmers, advocacy for broadband. I see it as advocacy for public education. We need to align and use those strengths and that momentum to our advantage.